pay for the fact that they're going to lose out.
Yeah, and
It just doesn't make sense.
is it if they could even go to like their wildest dreams, of zero emissions for everything, would that even really buy us that much
No,
time?
because it doesn't matter. We're in the torrid stream of meteorites, okay? It happens at 35,000 years. It happened at 25,000 years. It happened at 12,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to happen real soon again, that we're going to get hit by a torrid meteor shower. Okay, that's so big that it will drastically affect the climate. Okay, the particles of the last one, 12,800 years ago, created the Great Lakes, and they're kind of postulating this right now because of the Carolina Bays. Okay, all over these, they don't call them Carolina Bays anymore because they're not just found in Carolina.
Yeah.
Okay.
You said they were in Montana and
there's
and
all
a few
they're
places.
spread all across. And before they had a few of this and they lined them up and they thought it was like Illinois and Ohio, but when they found the rest of the bays in this huge arc, and we're not talking a few, we're talking 10,000. There is no meteor that's ever broken up into 10,000 pieces. And yet these are elliptical impacts from a stratified trajectory point. And you go, wait a minute, that's the Great Lakes. And when they do all the impact analysis,
mm-hmm.
it all comes from the front part of each lake. Like the Michigan and stuff, I can't remember the names of them, you probably do. The big, huge one here, the impact came from the very front of that lake. Then the other lake over here, it came from the very front of that lake, which suggests that as the Earth is rotating and the comet's coming in, okay, it wouldn't hit in the front of the bay here, the ice here,
mm-hmm.
okay, and eject this way, right? It hits here, goes into the ice, okay, ejects that stuff. Which
Ice
means
and stuff, right?
if you hit like this, you hit here, but the ejection material comes from here, right?
Yeah.
And so when you come back with the lines, it's here. But the lakes are here with the ejection coming from the face of it. Well, that totally makes sense from an impact strike event. You don't have the strike underneath. You have the deflected material come from in front of the angular momentum path. And that's exactly what all these, from Montana to South Carolina to all the way to Jersey, all these bays, and they tried to say they were lacustrine, which is basically freshwater ponds. If they were freshwater ponds, they wouldn't all be aligned exactly to one point. They'd be random. They're almost all aligned to one point. The ones that are left that can be clarified at directional alignment are all aligned to those points. And at first they said they're not perfectly at one point. And after we saw comet Shoemaker-Levy hit Jupiter, and it broke up into 7 or 8 huge chunks, that each chunk made an impact the size of the Earth, we realized when they get gravitationally impacting, they get broken apart by the gravity, by the force of the air pressure, and they start breaking them apart. Well, that means that this comet boloid broke apart and hit here, here, and here. Well, that is exactly what lines up with every single one of those trajectory intakes. And then you put all these, and you go, wow, all those ellipticals line up. They're not elliptical like this. They're elliptical exactly. So you see 10,000 impacts that are lining back up to these 3 lakes. How can you extrapolate anything other than a major impact? And what is even better is when they looked at the underlying strata
mm-hmm.
underneath these marshes that were basically soft sands and stuff like that, they found no disturbance on the underlying rocks. So these weren't initial impacts, these were secondary impacts, which makes sense because if these sizes of boulders of ice came in and they did these trajectories,
right?
And Antonio Zamora, he does a complete, he's a genius. He's retired now and he's worked through the field with all the cutting edge sciences he worked on, all the mathematical analysis he worked on. He's got a master's degree in engineering. He worked for IBM for years. He's the guy that's got the most intelligence. He's showing this stuff.
Wow.
He's showing if they hit a mound this way, it would make a different impact if they hit the downside of a mound. So you can have these different looking bays. Well, depending on if it was a sand dune it hit or if it was the downside of a sand dune.
Right.
So he's showing that, but the majority that are in flat areas are aligned to exactly this.
So you're saying climate change and stuff doesn't really matter to kind of tie it
when-
all together because a catastrophe is going to happen again at
Every
some point.
12,000 years, a catastrophe happens. They dated these embankments,
Mm-hmm.
and they dated from 35 to 25 to 12.8 to 2,500 years ago. Okay, these type of things they dated, but that doesn't quite make sense really, because they think that a lot of this is introduced after the fact. Because if it was one impact, okay, if it was one meteorite or boloid that broke up and impacted the Great Lakes, that's believable. But for the next time around to hit exactly where it did while the Earth spins each time is improbable. So there's a marker at 12.8.
Mm-hmm.
There's a platinum anomaly. There's the black mats at 12.8. There's all this stuff that matches up at 12.8. But there's other markers, and we have to discount these of other events that happen. Okay.
Yeah.
So the majority markers are the impact at 12.8 caused these. And if you strap back, well, how did the Great Lakes get formed? And they're 1,000 feet deep, the deepest, 1,000 feet deep into solid bedrock. You're telling me the ice went like this and went down 1,000 feet into solid bedrock here, here, and here, but nowhere else. Nowhere else if the ice sheets showed these deformations down in like this. And when you look at that and you go, if it doesn't show any impact, yeah, because the main impactors, they hit at the Great Lakes, they forced the ice down hard as can be, it sheared the rocks open and just exploded out. There's no formed crater because ice pushed it down, okay, and it pushed it down into impact points and broke open these fissures in the ground.
Yeah.
1,000 feet deep. Okay, and then and they're just woof, huge. But then as the waters come down and go in these and come out, they create all these, and they just turned into big long fissures like this. But when you extrapolate from the front impact that it would hit here, it's just like all the evidence points to it got impacted. It formed the Carolina bays. It destroyed the megafaunas. The funny thing is they go, but it didn't kill the brown bear, which turned into the grizzly. Didn't kill the brown bear, and it didn't kill the bison.